Hi, PFC Balzer here, or Alderman Balzer from the 11th Ward, former elected official, and as I say, I'm always a Marine first and a Vietnam veteran. But I'm here with my good friend, Tom Ryan. How many years were you a fireman, Tom?
32, just shy of 32 years.
32 years as a fireman in the city of Chicago. How long were you head of the local two?
Just shy of 10 years.
Just longest serving.
Longest serving, yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's a tough bunch.
I know it is.
It's a tough bunch.
I know it is. But we're here to talk about a very serious issue. The fires in Los Angeles that are devastating communities. In some instances, it looks like an atomic bomb was dropped there. I can't believe what I see on television and what I've heard. And what I wanted to do now was get a good opinion from a very knowledgeable man, my good friend Tom Ryan. And Tom, let's just start out with, you fought a lot of fires in your day.
Yes.
And comparison with this, pick it apart. Let's see what went wrong here.
Well, first of all, my experience in wildland firefighting is quite limited. And there was always a running joke between us and the California guys is that they thought we were nuts because we ran into buildings that were on fire, and we thought they were nuts because they jumped into forests that were on fire.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
But this comes down to a lot of basics. I mean, fire is basic. You need heat, you need a heat source, you need oxygen, you need fuel. It's called the fire triangle. You take one of those away, fire goes out, or the fire doesn't start. The problem what we're seeing here is you had a perfect storm and not in a good way. You had winds, Santa Ana winds can get up 60, 70 miles an hour. This was over 100.
Over 100,
This
yeah.
is over 100.
Yeah.
So what did that mean? That meant that all the airplanes, all the helicopters used to drop retardant and fire from the air were grounded. So firefighters were almost at a complete disadvantage then, only to find out that a lot of the hydrants were empty or were pushing terrible or no pressure at all.
They had no pressure, yeah.
Literally, I mean, they did not have the resources to fight this fire.
Did that ever happen here in Chicago?
Not that I know. I mean, the closest thing that we can see with this kind of property loss would be the Great Chicago Fire.
Great Chicago Fire, yeah. You and I
mean,
talked about
not as much area has burned, but certainly parts of LA look just like parts of that did back
Chicago
over
right
100
there.
years ago.
Yeah, right,
you know?
right.
So, there's going to be plenty of finger pointing going on.
Why wasn't there enough water pressure?
Well, my understanding is they have not allowed reservoirs to be adequately filled or refilled. There may be a fight going on between EPA or certain groups who are trying to stop this, but the bottom line is firefighters need two things to put out a fire, usually, in almost all instances. They need water and they need guts.
Yeah.
They need water to put on the fire and they need people with the guts to go and put it on.
I will tell you.
And there was plenty of guts out there.
Yes.
They just didn't have water. They
Without-
just didn't have water.
They just didn't have, would you rate, and let's go into why they didn't have water, or what's alleged now.
First of all, we have to talk in specifics. We can't talk in what ifs. I don't live in the land of what if.
Yeah.
And I'm only going to point fingers when I know for a fact or know what the facts are. But all I can tell you is there is absolutely no excuse whatsoever for a firefighter to go to a hydrant, turn it on, and have no water come out. That is the number, and I mean, it's not only something that needs to be done nationwide, but especially there.
Yeah.
They have this happens every year.
Yeah, they have major
And
fires out there.
how this was allowed to happen is just beyond me.
I guess my opinion would be the firemen were prepared.
Yes,
But the politicians weren't prepared.
Listen.
One of the things that they did that I found absolutely outrageous is they cut part of the budget, $17 million from the fire department.
Well, one of the biggest problems in this whole scenario is the fact that LA and all the property that surrounds LA, all the acreage around it, is loaded with deadfall, dead branches, debris
yeah.
that has not been touched in years. And when you have, it's called a fire load, and it's a huge fire load. And when you have 0 to no humidity and 100 miles an hour, 100-mile-an-hour winds, all it takes is a single match, a single strike, a single ember, and you can have, and you're going to have exactly what we're having right now.
You had this major fire, and one of the things I thought of, we evacuated a building here in the ward, a seniors building.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this isn't taken into account, but you have hospitals,
Oh.
you have seniors buildings, you have disabled people. How in the hell do they get out?
It's a logistics nightmare. And one of the biggest problems that they've had that nobody seems to be talking about, they talked about it early on, but no one has since. People were driving their cars, they either ran out of gas or didn't charge up their electric vehicle or whatever it was, and it stalled, or they just left it in the middle of the road and then took their keys. So now when the fire department's trying to get down the road, they can't get down the road because there's a bunch of abandoned cars. They had to bring in bulldozers to push these cars out of the way so firefighters could get up and through and rescue, ambulance and police could get up to rescue these people that we're speaking of. It's just there's failures on a lot of levels.
Major level. I mean, one of the things that I heard, now we'll go into, is traffic jams.
Yes.
They couldn't get the police out there to direct traffic.
Because there was just so many. And
Incredible.
well, another thing that people tend to do is they tend to ignore evacuation warnings. They tend to say, oh, no, I'm going to stay. I'm going to fight it. It happens not only in California, it happens a lot in Florida too.
Yeah.
Where they want to ride out the hurricanes. Well, guess what? Sometimes one thing you can always be assured of, Mother Nature is going to win. We will never tame her, ever. So we just have to be able to fight it as best we can. And when you don't give us the one basic tool that they need to fight a fire, which is water, you're screwed.
How can, and they're right by the Pacific Ocean.
Well,
let's go into
that's salt water.
Okay.
And that will ruin equipment. That will ruin equipment.
That's something I didn't know.
So yeah, I mean, as a last ditch effort, I guess they would have to, but those engines would be useless.
The fire truck engine.
Fire truck engines would be useless after they do.
I haven't heard that.
Salt water is not good for good for pumps. It'll work, but now look at the expense you're going to incur after the fact, because these things probably won't. It eats away at the seals. The salt eats away at the seals.
These are things that I don't know. And that's what I said. You're one of the most knowledgeable people I know when it comes to the fire department.
And a lot of this stuff, quite honestly, Jim, is basic common sense.
And having a plan in place.
And having a plan in place before it happens. What we do in the fire service is called pre-fire planning. That means you go to a building and you look around the building and look at it before it's on fire.
Yeah.
So that when you go there, you know what to expect, you know what the hazards are, at least you have a fighting chance. And there was very little pre-planning here, as far as I can tell. I mean, it's a fireman's worst nightmare is to go to a hydrant and open it and there's no water. Now in here,
that's a nightmare.
In Chicago, sometimes that happens because they're frozen, But out there, they don't freeze out there. So there's only one reason why there's no water in that water coming out of that hydrant. Somebody screwed up. Somebody screwed up.
Without a doubt. I mean, here in Chicago, I know one of the things as far as water pressure, and this is my part as an elected official, during the summertime, you get people that turn on fire hydrants and they have that water gushing out all over, and then if there's a fire, the water pressure is down. Am I correct?
Correct. Yes, that does happen. The good thing about it, we have the greatest water system in the world here.
Lake Michigan.
I mean, it's plentiful, and we could put out just about any fire here. What they have is and here's the thing too, we have flat terrain there. They're dealing with incredible incline, So, I mean, even raising ladders on inclines like that, some of which they're not doing much of that out there. They're just trying to get water. What they're doing, what we used to call put wet stuff on the red stuff. You're trying to get water on that fire. That's all you're trying to do, and make sure everybody is out.
I heard they finally called in the National Guard, which you need now. You have to worry about looters. You have
Well,
to
they've
worry
had
about
looters
people.
already, from what I understand.
Yeah,
So
that's sad. People that try to take
horrible.
advantage of that. Of course, the military, people forget this about the military. Other than fighting wars, there's other things that they do.
Yes, they do.
The National Guard is used for hurricanes, tornadoes, major fires like this. People are using it. So it's really a combined effort with the fire department, the police department. And the other thing that struck me is the insurance.
Yeah.
There's people, the insurance companies drop the insurance. Now, I don't know why, but
Well, I mean, it all goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is that, you have some people that have lost, 2 or 3 homes. They've come in, they've lost a home, it's been rebuilt, and then burned again. And the same thing happens in waterfront. As long as we keep building in floodplains, in tinderboxes, on fault lines, on waterfront property, we're going to have this issue.
Yeah.
We're going to have this issue because, our weather is changing. I mean, everybody I think could probably attest to that. But weather always changes. I mean, they found whale bones in the Arctic, and they found camel bones in the Arctic and whale bones in the Mojave Desert.
Yeah.
This world is always changing. We've got to change with it. And something that may have worked 20 years ago doesn't work anymore. We keep building homes in these places that we cannot effectively fight fires. They keep doing it, and this is a perfect example of what happens.
couldn't agree more. One of the other things, and I think we can close out with this. One of the things as a politician, former politician, I would tell people, follow the budget. Go to the budget hearings. If they talk about defunding the police, cutting the budgets, like this money that was cut from the police department or from the fire department, you have to speak up. Those are your tax dollars. What's wrong with protecting you? I think that's essential, is to keep that.
All I can tell you, $17 million could have picked up a whole lot of dead wood and cleared a whole lot of dead brush. And maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't have been as bad as it was.
I agree. There's more that could have been done, should have been done. And again, you're talking over, 21,000 acres or 27,000 acres burned? 130,000 people are under evacuation? My God, that's incredible. And we want to pray for the people of California, especially in those devastated areas. When I listen to what's happened, where they had one guy on there talking, goes, "This is where my grandfather lived. This is where I live. This is where my kids live," and now it's rubble.
Yep.
It's in rubble. I hope people remember that, and remember, if you're sending money, make sure you send to an honest organization where the money's going to go to the victims and not to some guy that's managing that. That's all important. That's very, very important, that the money gets to the victims. Tom, I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Always good to have you around and having your opinion. It means a lot. And if you were to, what would you close out by saying, if you were to tell people here in Chicago what they should do or shouldn't do with these fires?
Well, first of all, if you can help in any way to the people that have suffered so much loss out there, please do so. If I can say anything, it's that fire is an ever-present danger. You've got one of the best fire departments in the world right here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think Chicagoans can rest very easy at night. But there's factors in all states, in all climates, in all parts of the country that make things a little bit unique.
Right.
And just be safe, teach your kids about fire safety, have a plan. If something happens, if there's an earthquake, we don't get many natural disasters here.
Right.
But you should have a bag packed. You should have a plan of where am I going to go if something goes wrong. If I'm told I got to evacuate, where do I go?
Where do you go? Yeah.
You've got to have that plan in place.
Got to save your lives.
That's it.
And all right, thanks, Tom.
It's a pleasure.
All right. Everyone, thank you, and thank you.